Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this side event at the 58th session of the Human Rights Council, titled Lived Experiences, Collective Advocacy Towards an International Legally Binding Instrument on the Rights of Older Persons. I am Alejandro Bonilla Garcia, Chair of the NGO Committee on Aging and representative of the International Federation on Aging on the United Nations. In an ideal world, this meeting would not be necessary. A world where no one is left behind, where all rights are upheld, and priorities include gender equality, disability rights, and adequate financing for rights and development. Furthermore, in such a world, legal frameworks would be flawless. Regrettably, that is not our reality. Our world, especially in matters affecting older persons, remains deeply flawed. However, there is no fate that we cannot change, and improvement is always, and today more than ever, within our grasp. Conveniently, there are no grounds for indifference or inaction. Today, we highlight the leadership of the Group of Friends of Older Persons in Geneva, co-led by Argentina and Slovenia. We are privileged to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Carlos Mauro Foradori, Permanent Representative of Argentina to the UN in Geneva, who will deliver opening remarks. Welcome, Ambassador. Joining him in advancing our cause is His Excellency Bosena Forstanaric Boroje, Director General for Multilateral Cooperation from the Slovenian Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. She, along with Mrs. Rose Kahire, co-chair of GARO, who will participate via WebEx from Kenya, will provide closing remarks. We are honored by their presence, dedicated efforts, and contributions. The efforts of NGOs and civil society are not just commendable, they are essential. This afternoon, we are privileged to hear from three true change makers who don't just ponder the issues of older persons. They live their challenges. They face the violence and strive to bridge the gaps of these adversities and legal gaps every day. We have with us, and it's our privilege, Mrs. Ermira Pirdeni, founder and executive director of the Albanian Society of All Ages. We also have Mr. Elijah Mbwega, founder and CEO of Karika Kenya, a community-based organization advocating for older persons' rights across 21 countries. And finally, we have Dr. Halida Akhtar from the Society for Health Promotion Links from Bangladesh. This side event is being recorded and will be posted online later. It is sponsored by the Permanent Mission of Argentina to the United Nations in Geneva and co-organized by the German National Association of Senior Citizens, BACSO, the International Federation on Aging, IFA, and the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, INPEA, in partnership with the Global Alliance for the Rights of Older People, GAROP, and the NGO Committee on Aging Geneva. We are grateful to Help Age International and AARP for their generous support for this event. We are also grateful to all the permanent missions and UN agencies that have supported this event today. Thank you for participating here and for those who are joining us online. To have the opening remarks, it's my privilege to invite Ambassador Foradori. The floor is yours.
Thank you, William Bonilla Garcia. And first of all, I would like to thank GARO for organizing this side event and for the invitation to deliver this opening remark on behalf of Argentina. I'm honored to be part of this important activity that gathers us today. We are here to reflect upon the value and the rights of older persons and the duties that we have towards them. We're all very aware of the demographic shift our societies are experiencing, especially in the rapid increase in the number of persons aged 60 years and over. In that context, recognizes that greater attention needs to be paid to the specific challenges affecting older persons become more relevant than ever. The existing international legal framework on the human rights of older persons, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other relevant international human rights instruments, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, constitute a solid basis for the recognition and promotion of rights of every human being. But we also face the need of specifically translating generic human rights into more concrete ones in order to address the new realities I have already described and allow space for a growing understanding of them. We know that the protection and promotion of human rights concern a wide range of social actors, but we also know, as state representatives, we have a huge responsibility on this regard. In this process, member states, as well as relevant bodies and organizations of the United Nations system, can play a role and make positive contributions. We all have responsibilities and duties towards older members of our societies, those who have previously cared for us and who definitively make this present day possible. That is why we would like to point the work of the open-ended working on the aging out and recall decision 14.1 that recommends the elaboration of an international legal binding instrument to promote, protect, and ensure the recognition and the realization on an equal basis of all rights, of all human rights of older persons, especially to ensure their meaningful social participation. We think one of the main objectives of an international legally binding instrument will be to recognize the valuable contributions older persons make to our common good, to families, to human, social, and economic development, to protect languages when many are disappearing, religious beliefs, and cultural identities in every society. We believe that establishing an intergovernmental working group within the Human Rights Council with a mandate to elaborate and submit to the Human Rights Council a draft international legal binding instrument on the human rights of older persons will be a central tool to recognize the equal dignity and rights of older persons and our duties towards them. As Argentina sees it, the elaboration of a legally binding instrument by the intergovernmental group shall be presided by the principles of international cooperation, sovereignty, and the respect for fundamental rights and freedoms, and harmonizing actions of nations in the attainment of this common end. Multiple stakeholders will be invited to submit inputs: states, civil society, especially older persons, and their organizations and independent experts will have online access to all relevant information and decisions. National human rights institutions and UN bodies also will be able to contribute actively and constructively with the Intergovernmental Working Group and its work. Last but not least, we also find it fundamental to work together in order to foster the meaningful participation and engagement of older persons and their representative organizations in an inclusive manner, and in particular, to give older persons the opportunity to express their views on the topic and the substance, to listen to their views, and to act upon them towards our common goals and international legal binding instruments. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for sharing with us all your insights on the international legally binding instrument and the importance for many, many peoples to have it. The modus operandi to follow up this side event that was designed by Garop is by asking the same short question to each one of our panelists. So we're going to start with a very short and possibly you might say personal question to the panelists. Understanding the motivations behind one actions often provides deep insights into the commitment and drive. I would like to start with you, Halida, if you may. What is that motivates you to campaign for older people's rights and the new UN Convention? Please, the floor is yours.
I'm a public health personnel with a special emphasis on women's health. And I have been involved in promotion of preventive care of women throughout her life course, and strongly realized that their sufferings and deprivation in their older ages. My strong realization is that the right to health and access to health services is critical in older ages, as they may be at a greater risk of reduced functional ability. Yet, for millions of older persons, this right is neither respected, protected, nor fulfilled. In most developing countries, older persons do experience a lack of access to their health services. I have many reasons for my motivation to campaign for older people's rights and need for a new UN convention is that the women are even more vulnerable situation than men with their high prevalence of non-communicable diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's diseases. Women older persons are also victims of violence, abuse, and neglect at household levels and outside. There exists limited access to health insurance and high out-of-pocket cost. Many have no choice but to forego seeking health care or face impossible choices between health and other basic needs. For all these reasons, we must promote and protect human rights of older persons. In many countries, the right to enjoy the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health does exist, but it is not sufficiently articulated how it applies to older ages. This invisibility of older persons in the international human rights framework and the lack of comprehensive binding instrument leads a systemic failure in protecting older people's right to not only health, but also at all levels. And we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted this in the most brutal ways. For all the above reasons, a dedicated legally binding instrument is urgently needed. It would clarify states' obligations to ensure that older persons' needs are fulfilled through access to their basic needs, which are their rights on an equal basis with others. This instrument would also protect older persons' autonomy and independence in all related matters. The main purpose of this legally binding instrument is to establish critical and clearly defined norms and obligations to older persons. The purpose is to ensure that the rights of older persons are applied in law and in practice on an equal basis with others and without discrimination based on age or any other status. To ensure that older people have the right to access their required goods, facilities, and services that meet their physical, mental, cognitive, psychosocial health, and other care needs. The legally binding instrument will clarify that the older persons have the right to make their own decisions and have their voices heard in all matters relating to their health and overall well-being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Halida, for your passionate advocacy on the right to health for older persons. And I will turn to Elmira with the same question. What is that motivates you to campaign for older people's rights and the new UN Convention? The floor is yours.
A significant number of older persons in Albania continue to live in poverty. 70% of older people have low poverty level pensions under 2,100 euros per month. Many older persons say they are unable to afford basic necessities to survive, such as food, water, clothing, housing, medical care and support. Older person receiving a pension where the value of payment is low rely on others, including their spouses, children, or other member family. Older person on inadequate pension or who have no pension at all are being denied not only their right to social security and social protection, but also their right to health, an adequate standard of living, participation in society, work, autonomy and independence, and education and lifelong learning. I am an older woman, myself 79 years old, and faced with the same challenges. I am here today to share my long-lived experience. The unique barriers all the person in Albania face to realizing their right to social protection and social security are not adequately covered under international human rights law. The right of social protection and social security in older age need to be clearly set up in new Convention on the Right of Older Persons. This would build in existing human rights standards and apply them to the particular context of older age. It would clarify state obligation to ensure older persons access to social protection, social security that is accessible, available, adequate, and acceptable on an equal basis with others. It would also protect older persons' autonomy and independence in all related matters, as well as their access to remedies and redress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ermira, for sharing your powerful testimony on the harsh realities of poverty among older persons in Albania. Now I turn finally to Elijah on your motivation to campaign for older people's rights and the new UN Convention. Elijah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Coming from a background of human rights defenders, older persons in Kenya are subjected to different types of abuse, example of financial, physical, sexual, and psychological, among others. They face a wide range of types of violence, abuse, neglect, and the perpetrators go scot-free. A very worrying practice is that of accusation of witchcraft, leading to older persons, particularly older women, being subjected to barbaric acts of violence and even lynching. When you go to report of an older person case to the police station, the police officers would always argue that they do not have an act of parliament to base the case on. Sometimes they tell you that they would rather take a case of a child abuse because they can refer to the act as opposed to the older person's abuse. I speak today, we have a case of a Mr. Peter Mwangi Kibara, whose wife was lynched under the perception of witchcraft in Kiharu, Murang'a County more than 2 years ago, and still the perpetrators are not yet arrested or taken to court. At the national level, the legal frameworks that would protect the rights of older people are weak, insufficient, or at best fragmented and patchy. Currently, there is no specific law on the rights of older persons in Kenya. There's a draft bill which has taken long, making it and not protecting the right of older people, specifically these cases that we have today. A legally binding instrument on the rights of older persons would clarify the scope of the rights to be free from all forms of abuse, precisely state obligations arising from the human rights and how to be implemented in practice. It would provide an accountability mechanisms where older persons can challenge injustice through everyday interactions with the public service, all through the legal cases. Actually, this is the reason we are here today. We cannot wait to see our older people suffering while we are here waiting to age as them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alaya, for bringing the light of the severe challenges of violence and abuse against older persons in Kenya. But as we all know, advocacy requires not only motivation and passion, but also action. I would like now move to the second question to the panelists, and is how do you translate this passion and this motivation into action? How have you been advocating and campaigning for a UN convention? Please, Elia, the floor is yours.
As I mentioned that I'm from Bangladesh, and Bangladesh became independent in 1971. And when I look at the Constitution of Bangladesh in 1972, it guarantees fundamental rights and many more things. You know how beautifully the constitutions are written, which apply to all citizens, regardless of age and other grounds. A national policy on older person was adopted by Bangladesh government in 2013. However, the Bangladesh has no comprehensive law that specifically addresses the promotion and protection of the human rights of older persons. You probably know that Bangladesh, we have now interim government since last 9 months, and the government formed 11 reform commissions to make recommendations on various aspects of the citizens' lives and governance. I'm a member of Women Affairs Reform Commission, and I have been looking at the women's aspects to that. This gave me opportunity to conduct multiple consultations and participate in many events like roundtables and such others. I did advocacy in these events about the older person's rights issues and to create awareness on their disadvantaged situations. I also had opportunity to discuss with higher officials of the government like Ministry of Social Welfare, Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs, and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. We planned awareness building opportunities to provide greater clarity and specific guidance for the government on their obligations to older persons. I'm also incorporating older persons issues in our reform report, and we'll be handing over end of this month. These events will lead to increased funding for services that benefit older persons and to collect age disaggregated data to develop indicators and supporting instruments to improve monitoring of service delivery as well as social security. Creating new intergovernmental working group here in Geneva is the best way to ensure that we can continue to build consensus on how best to strengthen our rights internationally. Delay in addressing the rights of older persons will lead to increased vulnerability for them, including systemic ageism, inadequate social protection, and barriers to healthcare access. The resolution demonstrates leadership in tackling these pressing issues globally. This legal binding instrument will help us to do advocacy and make governments commit to the older person's rights and their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalida, for your dedication to advancing the rights of older persons through government collaboration. Now I turn to you, Elmira, with the same question. How do you translate motivation and passion into action, and how have you been advocating and campaigning for a UN convention? Elmira, the floor is yours.
Institution for 35 years in the Occupational Health Department. I have seen up close the working condition and occupational disease of workers in all industries in Albania, and the sub-poverty pay, especially the suffering of women and their families. Today, These are older women, and they continue to live in poverty with low pension and without any community services. This long-standing endemic poverty has touched me deeply, has made me sad. This has motivated me as an older woman myself to be an organizer of the aging movement in Albania and the voice of the older women. We working together with other NGOs and speaking to the media to raise the profile of the challenges faced by older people and participating in the Global Age with Right campaign for a UN convention. I work to support older people and in rural communities to share their stories with the media and claim their rights and address violation and their rights before local authorities. We need a convention to ensure government adopt policies and laws to protect older people's rights. I have been advocating for this for 25 years and I'm still to see meaningful progress. This is why I am here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ermira. Your work to amplify the voices of older persons and push for meaningful protection is inspiring. Now I turn to Elijah for the same question. How have you been translating motivation and passion to advocate and campaign for a UN convention? Elijah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I've been running a daycare center for the older people since 2003, where they come and they exchange their experiences and challenges together. I've been also mobilizing older people groups within the community, training them to become trainers of others in terms of advocacy skills. And we are trying to build a voice, a national voice for the older people in our country. Also, we have been celebrating international days of older persons, such like International Day for Older Persons, and we are very concerned about Elder Abuse Awareness Day, all the years, even as we sit here today. Working with the national human rights institutions and the government ministries, trying to create the awareness within our community. Through this, we have been able to create membership with the Global Alliance for the Rights of Older Persons, Help Age International, among other more. As I see it, I'm sitting as a steering group member of the Global Alliance here. Have been attending and following up with the UN Open-Ended Working Group for the last 14 years. And how proud I am that last year we passed a resolution. I've also been participating on global campaigns like Age Demand Action, Global Age with Rights, which is ongoing, asking for UN Convention on the Rights of Older Persons, engaging with the government ministry to do doing media campaigns. Surely, how happy I am today here, that I'm waiting to see a resolution that will come up with an intergovernmental working committee to start drafting this long-awaited legally binding instrument to protect the rights of older persons. I wish this time right now, we could have the team next room drafting so that we save the lives of our older people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elijah. Now, we're going to move to something that is really, I think, really very important, because this is a side event, but there will be many other meetings and very important meetings and consultations. I would like now to ask our panelists to give us a message, the thing that you would like us to keep in our mind and our hearts during the next meetings. What do you want us to keep in mind?
We all know that there is overwhelming evidence and lived experiences of older persons submitted to the open-ended working group over the past 14 years, which highlighted many infringements of older persons' rights. A Human Rights Council resolution establishing a drafting process of a new legally binding instrument is a critical step to address the existing normative gaps in international human rights law. And I see the value that even if any government changes, like in Bangladesh, this resolution is the only tool that maintains continuity of the commitment. We have lost enough time. We cannot lose momentum. Let's keep building on the years of work that we have already done together. The Human Rights Council must act now.
Thank you for your powerful message, Halida. Now I turn to Amira for your message to all of us.
Fourth, the resolution to establish a working group to elaborate a legally binding instrument to promote and protect our rights. We need a convention to increase the visibility of older persons in society. We ask you to seize this opportunity to transform the world in a positive way for older people today and older people of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elmira. And now, Elijah, your message to all of us, please.
Thank you, Chair. There is overwhelming evidence and lived experiences of older people submitted to the UN Open-Ended Working Group over the 14 years, highlighting many infringements of older people's rights. There are also numerous reports exuding glaring gaps in the protection of these rights. In the international human rights framework, we cannot lose the momentum. Let's keep building on the years of work that we have already done together. The Human Rights Council must act now, 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 now.
Thank you very much, Elijah. The message has been taken. We have three panelists through older persons. I'm the fourth in the panel. And if we would have asked every older person, we would have billions of messages in the same line. I think this is really very inspiring. We have very short time. We only have a few minutes for some questions or interactions from the floor. Please identify yourself and be as powerful as the message that you heard, short and powerful.
Alev Mine of the One Goal Initiative for Governance. As a lot of things are done to protect the elderly from abuse, how can we ensure that this very process is not turned against the elderly, in the sense that when somebody is trying to protect the elderly, it is that person can be accused of abusing the elderly in order for the elderly to die? I mean, accused, the person is accused, therefore it is not able to protect the elderly anymore, therefore the elderly dies, or is damaged in some way. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your very specific question. And Malawi, please.
Thank you very much, moderator. Just a comment that older persons, as we've been hearing, face multiple risks of human rights violations, including systemic ageism, discrimination, and social exclusion. Existing human rights treaties fail to explicitly address the unique challenges faced by older persons, such as elder abuse, healthcare inequalities, and economic insecurity. A binding international convention, therefore, would fill these gaps by setting clear, enforceable standards for their protection. Malawi has already taken steps to ensure the protection of older persons, and these include the enactment of the Older Persons Act, as well as the ratification of the African Protocol on the Right of Older Persons. We will therefore be supporting the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malawi. Now I give the floor to Kenya, please. And after.
Thank you very much. And in the interest of time, allow me to ride on existing protocols. But just to say that right at the outset, and as we thank Mr. Mwega for his work of advocacy and also of care, is that Kenya will support this resolution for many reasons. But there's one is that we were one of the countries that tipped over the ratification of the AU protocol on the rights of older persons. It came into force on the 4th of November, 2024. I think Kenya was one of the ones that ticked it over into effect. So just to say that being a right step in the right direction, Africa has already can show the rest of the world that you can have a legally binding instrument. Let's say that. And I think it is important to say that and not shy away from the truth that we have in many jurisdictions weak, fragmented legislation that does not necessarily take care of the elder abuse. So we will support and we thank all of that. And why is this important for all of us? Just to say, remember, you're right now you're older than when you walked into this room. So let us always remember that. Thank you.
Is Boris Engelson. I am a journalist accredited with the UN, and I am 78 years old. And this is, in fact, the topic I like to address in my short question. In wealthy countries, we spend billions for the elderly. But for the wise, standard elderly, you have to be a civil servant or unionized workers, retire at 65 and then do touchy or things like that. If you are not inside these rules, then you feel completely harassed by all the service for elderly people. They are time consuming, they cannot understand people who still work, they impose childish so-called cultural activities. So there is a black spot in the issue of old age. It is not just a matter of money, it is not just a matter of health, it is a matter of a bureaucratized society trying to impose its bureaucratic mentality to all sectors of society, and the elderly are especially helpless to challenge that.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Indeed, that is one of the obstacles that had to be addressed in the policies and the strategies. Now the floor to Albania, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to introduce myself. I am the ambassador of Albania, and I would like to thank you for organizing this side event, which Albania is pleased to co-sponsor. I am pleased that part of the distinguished panelist is Mrs. Mira Pirdeni. We welcome and value powerful role of civil society. In Albania, we have established a legal framework with special attention to protecting the rights, dignity, and autonomy of older persons, and to acknowledge that much more needs to be done to ensure that older persons can enjoy equal rights and dignity that all they deserve. Albania recently joined the group of friends in Geneva on older persons, and with commitment to do more, to learn and to exchange best practices. Then we believe that the establishment of the open-ended intergovernmental working group, which further promotes and guarantee the full enjoy of human rights by older person is very important. And we'd like to emphasize that as a member of Human Rights Council, Albania will contribute to advance this issue, but also to support the resolution in the Human Rights Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your co-sponsoring of the event, for providing us a panelist, and for your work with the group of friends. Thank you so much. Now, I will give the floor, possibly with your own statement, and if you would like to take or to make a response to any of the comments that have been made, it's my privilege to give the floor to Ambassador Bosena Forsnat-Tadic. Please, the floor is yours.
Is it okay? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the floor. I would firstly like to thank actually to all of you who intervened in that very short discussion. I'm pretty sure that if we would have more minutes on our hands, that it would get even more heated, but in positive way. And I'm really glad to hear on my personal note that after almost more than 10 years being involved in this matter, in this subject, and I'm pretty sure that many of you have been involved even longer, that I can feel that there is still the spirit and the will, even after all that long process, to continue and actually get to that achieving final goal. I would also like to thank all the speakers sharing with us their experience and the insight and thoughtfulness. And still being with us. And I have to say, I'm impressed when I see people reading from the phones, mobile phones, still being able to do that, because for me, I have to say, it's still, it's impressive. But as I'm coming from Slovenia, being a member of the core group and being a member of the group of friends for elder people, being advocate for the human rights of older persons for many years, let me first thank you, the organizers, for having this event, and especially to put us here to have this pleasure and privilege to have some kind of a concluding remarks to it. I would like to emphasize that today's discussion comes at the pivotal moments for strengthening the promotion and protection of human rights of older persons. Despite a globally aging population, the rights and needs of older people are still too often overlooked. They are exposed to ageism and frequently experience multiple forms of discrimination, inequality, and are disproportionately affected by violence, abuse, neglect, isolation, and poverty. Since the 80s, there have been significant efforts by governments, United Nations bodies, and civil society organizations to increase awareness and the sensitivity to aging issues. Numerous reports and various actors, of them, including independent experts, has identified problems and ways to address the challenges that prevented the full implementation and enjoyment of the human rights of older persons. A comprehensive international legal instrument on the human rights of older people has been identified as the most effective pathway to address the significant gaps in both international as well as national legal and policy frameworks. Furthermore, practical experience shows that global human rights treaties dealing with specific issues have made remarkable progress in protecting the human rights of older and targeted groups. The absence of a comprehensive internationally legal binding document to promote and protect the rights and dignity of older persons continue to have significant practical disadvantages impacting on older persons. Last year, in New York, the Open-Ended Working Group on Aging adopted a decision acknowledging the possible gaps in the protection of human rights of older persons and recommending states to, inter alia, elaborate an international legal binding instrument. The decision further proposes to address the human rights of older persons in other relevant multilateral fora, including this one, the Human Rights Council here in Geneva. As it was already stated before, the core group on the human rights of older persons will be tabling a resolution at the current Human Rights Council session, establishing, hopefully, an intergovernmental working group with a clear mandate to elaborate a legally binding instrument on the human rights of older persons. Ladies and gentlemen, advancing the human rights of older persons is a global challenge that we must take up together. We have heard from older campaigners from various regions of the world today. We heard from people from Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America. And I would like to thank, as already said, sharing your experience. You've been the ones that are at the front and advocating for those rights. We also need a campaign for a so-called paradigm shift that focuses on the inclusion of older persons in society at all levels, encompassing age-friendly communities and environments, and promotes the autonomy and dignity of older persons. All that has been vital in advancing the global efforts for enhancing the promotion and protection of human rights of older persons. I would all like to just invite you, and perhaps also those parties and those agents and those countries that are not sitting in this room, to listen to that, to listen to you, to listen to arguments, and to understand and to engage in the process also with an open, clear mind, not with some kind of a predispositions, already standing, listen throughout, and be also a part of that process that hopefully we will continue here in Geneva. And I can assure you that, at least from the core group, we are very much committed to ensuring that the working group will provide a platform for inclusive and transparent intergovernmental discussion with a meaningful participation of all stakeholders. That's important. Involvement of all relevant stakeholders from all regions at all stages of the process is crucial in achieving then a representative as well as impactful outcome. And on very personal notes, I just say very, very shortly, very bluntly, maybe in a bit more too simple way, but I would say that after all this year, the process gone through in New York, the outcome of New York and New York recognizing that perhaps Geneva is the place to get to the final destination, I would say the time is right, the place is right, and I think the will is there. So as it was said, the momentum is there, don't lose that. Just push it, because I think that if not ever, then, you know, it's the time. It's the time, and hopefully there is a light in the end of the tunnel, and that we will live to see that light. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your inspiring words and for your continued leadership of Slovenia. I would like now to give the floor to Ambassador Foradori for.
Thank you, Mr. Bonilla Garcia. And the ambassador just made a reference to timing. And this is an exquisite time. And we are already late. Within the framework of human rights, there are many issues. Human rights and climate change, human rights and enterprises, human rights and plastics. But they are major issues that are focused specifically as a center of gravity, the human being, which are women, which are child, which are also persons with disabilities. And look at that. 1979, 1981, the Convention on Eliminating the Forms of Discrimination Against Women. 1989, 1990, the Convention of Rights of the Child. 2006, 2008, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. In each one, it's been about 1 decade. Well, the last one was 2008, and talking about this center human being, human rights issues. Well, I hope that at least next year we will have finally a convention on older persons. That is one thing. And the last thing I want to add to that is that the truth greatness of a nation is measured not by the power of its arsenals, but by the justice of its laws and its work on taking care of the most vulnerable people of its population. And if there is one group that is really vulnerable, are older persons in each of our countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your inspiring words and for bringing humanity one more to our discussion. Now, it's my privilege to give the floor to our dear Rosa Cajayo from Kenya. If she is available, can you confirm?
Yes, I'm
She's
available. Yes.
Dear Rosa, welcome to Geneva. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Alejandro. My task is to give a vote of thanks on behalf of Global Alliance for the Rights of Older People. We are grateful for the opening remarks from His Excellency Ambassador Faladolio of Argentina, our main sponsor for this event, and for your continued leadership on the human rights of older people. And thanks for highlighting the need for legally binding instruments of older people. My sincere thanks to Ambassador Baroja for those powerful closing remarks. We do value your insights and time. Many thanks to all co-organizers for supporting the event today. To Alejandro, thanks for your expert in moderation. It was thought-provoking and we really appreciate it. Most of all, I would like to express my deepest appreciation to the older campaigners who have traveled a long way to speak to us today, shared their lived experience and insights, and moved us with their stories. Their tireless advocacy and their call to action governments is not underrated. It is very much appreciated. We have worked together in solidarity for a long time to compile evidence and build consensus and how to strengthen our rights, and will not support until the injustice facing older person and the world are alleviated. As Global Alliance for the Rights of Older People, we stand ready to engage constructively in the process and support it by mobilizing our global network members to contribute our expertise. The path forward is clear. It's time for the Human Rights Council to move beyond discussion and take concrete action. We will be following closely. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Rose, and thank you very much to all those participants here at the Palais and online. And hope you have a very nice continuation. Bye.